I made the mistake of actually setting up YouTube on my phone. Of course, it started broadcasting it all at the same time. So I just want to welcome everyone for joining us today, and thank you very much for joining us as part of this Look Forward Thursday's session. And I've got the lovely Muriel Gibbons with me today from the Wirral. Okay, and today's show is very much is a bit of a different format. It's more run in a bit like a Q&A. So several people have asked lots of questions beforehand, and I've got those for you, but also 2 or 3 people I think have volunteered to join us in today. And also, if you'd like to do so, please do so in the chat. Just put any comments or questions in there. I can see that Renata's already ahead of the game in there. So any of those of you who'd like to introduce yourselves, please feel free to do so. So without further ado, we'll get started. So today's program is very much focused around how you're going to spring forward your business. Okay, so that's the theme for today. We've got, but it's very much down to you. We'd like you to feel free to ask questions, drop them in when you feel like, and we'll also indicate whether you'd like to be part of the shows as well, so we can potentially work that in too. So for those of you who are regulars as part of this live stream, you know that we're very interested in working with our clients to help build valued connections and accelerate the deep building of relationships based on trust. That really is important. If we know, like, respect and trust each other, we're far more likely to all benefit from that. And obviously, we are here to support you in your business. And we recognize that running a business can be a very lonely journey, whether you're a company of 1 or a company of 1,000. And it's about building everything on deep foundations. And if you enjoy these sessions, please do feel free to share on Facebook or YouTube Live. And if you're on YouTube, hit the subscribe button and the bell if you'd like to be notified about it as well. That'd be great. And in the chat, just do tell us what you're really passionate about and also why you do it. And also be bold with your questions. That way we can make the whole thing, the whole session, lots of fun. And I'll just say welcome here as well to Alex Rinn, who's joined us today, and also who else we got here? Yes, I can see a number of you are logging in as we speak. So if we move on a little bit from that now and onto a bit of introduction for myself and Muriel. I'm personally very passionate about the helping businesses to grow, and also in particular helping people to focus on building circular relationships rather than a very cheap win-win. It's about trying to think of all the stakeholders that we work with, whether there are our fellow directors or whether our management team or staff, whether prospects, clients, investors, associates, suppliers. Yes, suppliers are in there as well, because again, if you focus on building relationships, then amazing things tend to happen. And moving on a touch from that, just a quick reminder of what we do, and then we'll get down to the meat of the session today. We really want to work with our clients to help them to build on their strategic guidance systems or dashboards. Imagine you're driving your Tesla or flying a fighter jet. You obviously have your instrumentation there at the top, which is giving you an indication of how fast you're going, what altitude and everything else. When you're running your business, it's really important to know your numbers. Clearly need to have a real sense of your value brand proposition. And once you've got that sorted out, it's about how to amplify your message out there. And it's not in the usual way of doing things. That's very, very time inefficient. It's about building a scale into that. But then everything's really about the social selling blueprint, where it's lead generation, prospect nurturing, and sales optimization. And that's all doing that with consistency. So you've got a continual flow of new leads coming in. Then finally, as part of that, is all about the client enhancement system as well. How can you make your clients really want to see you succeed, and the other way around, so they become almost raving fans, and also they want to become very active referral partners. And all this is under the framework of helping you to bring your sales forward, amplify your brand, and get your time back. So what we're going to be discussing today, more interview style, and again, those of you who've just signed in and who've already volunteered to take part in the show live today, Muriel's going to post a link in live stream in a moment, and obviously at different points we'll introduce people. Equally, if you would like to be actually live on the show, then do indicate that in the chat as well. And we're going to be discussing really what's working in your business, what isn't working, what's proving more challenging, and how you can fix and move those things, move forwards, okay? And what does the new world order look like? And that's really important as we, thank goodness, start to come out of lockdown now, and what it may look like in sort of 6, 12, 18 months' time, and how we can adapt and thrive. That's the theme for today. So don't be backwards and coming forwards with your questions. So I think without further ado, we'll get started. And I'm about to bring Muriel in just a moment. So I think Muriel's dealing with a call at the moment, actually. So hopefully if he's just joining us as we speak. So anyway, thank you very much for joining us today. So let's get properly started. And I know that Renato, if you could very kindly, I'm not sure the link's been shared. Muriel, if you could put the link in the chat if you can, or if not, I'll try and do that myself. Bear me a second. Okay, let's try and grab this here. I think someone's obviously having difficulty logging in. Right, there we go. Renata, if you could very kindly pick up on the chat, that'd be great. Okay, so just click on that link. Before when you join us, by the way, make sure you're muted in Facebook or YouTube. Don't mute yourself, but mute your sound in Facebook or YouTube. So open it, do it by another tab. And Renata, we'll see you here in just a moment. I know that we've had several questions beforehand, and one of the questions beforehand, when I was trying to sort that person out, was from Richard, and he runs a software development company, and he's basically made the point he's regularly posting articles on LinkedIn, but not getting any traction, and he's basically asking how he can get his message out there. That's a really good question, actually, because that leads into another point which I talked about a moment ago. And what we tend to find, Richard, if you're with us live today or if you're watching the recording afterwards, is that lots of people will focus on writing some posts and articles, put it on LinkedIn. They might even put it on Facebook as a case in point. But the difficulty is these days, certainly on Facebook, you have to really pay to play. You'll get a very small amount of traction on Facebook without paying, and it's a good thing to regularly do. But it is a lot of hard work. There are ways that you can boost that engagement by paying, but whereas Facebook used to give you that for free 3 or 4 years ago, now to get any meaningful presence, you have to typically pay to get your message really out there. Now, on LinkedIn at the moment, they're still actively encouraging that. You can get engagement much more quickly, but again, they are moving more to a pay-to-play model. And of course, because a lot more people are doing it, there's a lot more noise, and as a consequence, arises from other noise. Now, the trouble with that, Jonathan, if you are with us today, Richard, if you're with us today, it is the fact that a lot of people don't think strategically about this, so it's not time efficient. So what we really say is that if you could look at it from the other way around, think about how you can create some video content. It might be a video interview or a live stream, a bit like today, how you can then broadcast that live across the different social channels, then how you can repurpose that and then rebroadcast that a couple of weeks later. Then what you can then do is look at how you can then distribute that through podcasts. And it all sounds very complicated, but I promise you it isn't if you know how to do it. And the great thing is you get across the 6 to 8 different main podcasting channels. And then how you can repurpose that again, make that a downloadable report or a white paper, or the script from the recording itself. And also then what you can do, of course, is take that and turn that into 5 or 6 posts or articles from one piece of content. And then what you can then do is to use social media to really amplify that message and get it out there through Twitter and through the other channels as well. So that's a really good example. And that way you'll get a lot more traction. What I would say is the clues in what I've just said. It is about attraction. It will generate you some business, but typically most people will need to take a much more strategic approach to actually get clients. And obviously, we'll no doubt touch on that in just a moment. So Muriel, hopefully you're we're able to help that person out in the end.
Yes, yeah.
I think we've now got Renato join us, and also we've got Daniel Kelling in the background as well. So Renato, if we come to you first. So welcome, Renato. Nice to see you this afternoon. Yeah, so I think you've got a bit of a question for us, haven't you, wanted to ask? This is the context of your new business you're planning to start, is in about 2 or 3 years' time, is that right?
It is, Rupert. Yes. I always like to think it's in a year or two, but my current company keeps finding more and more for me.
Yeah, no, great. And thank you for that. So tell us a bit more about your new business very quickly, and tell if you could describe to us the sort of question you've got, that'd be great.
Perfect, yeah. So first of all, for the new business, which is in the healing profession of alternative medicine, craniosacral therapist, looking at, is it really the right time now to say, recreate the business, go for growth, or that proverbial question, do we hold on for just a little bit longer to see that the world is really recovering, or just go for it?
Yeah, that is a really good question. I love that one. And thanks for that. Now, obviously, I know in your particular case, you are this question might be possibly relate to something that's 1 or 2 years away. Obviously, correct me if that's wrong. But
yes.
Let's assuming that it was something you wanted to do now and really wanted to grow it. In real terms, I would, forgetting about your other circumstances just for a moment, having working for a very large corporate. What I would say under normal circumstances, there's really no time like the present, and actually it's probably increasingly more so now. The big thing is, of course, that we are moving into a new world order. Ironically enough, what's happened, as everyone knows, I think, is a lot of people have actually switched more to an online model because it's been forced upon us, as it were, and obviously everything's starting to move in the direction of hybrid. And then it's going to and probably remain like that for quite some time before it returns to some sense of normality. In your particular case, I think, am I correct in saying that you would normally see people face to face for the work that you would do? Is it something you can practice remotely?
That's right, Rupert. So a good example I did before COVID came along was going into a company, and with that company, working through their members of the company, 30 minutes each, giving a healing session. So it was so efficient for them, really good to show they were giving a good give back to their workforce that showed an improvement in work performance as well as home life was better. But the catch, of course, is many of those companies I knew, surprise, surprise, they've closed their London offices. They're wondering, do they embrace remote working forevermore, or at least many I'm talking to are saying every 2 months or so, they need to bring people together, they need to socialize, so there can still be the opportunity for a slightly different approach.
Yeah, okay. So with this as well, generally, it's interesting because I think companies are now starting to bring some of their workforces in. So there's 2 people I know in particular where they've been working at home for almost a year. And now what's happening, they're being asked to go into the office 2 or 3 days a week, starting as from pretty well the beginning of June. So obviously I appreciate when you're part of a massive corporate, you've got an issue over social distancing, gap lifts, whether it's Canada Tower or BT Tower or whatever it may be. But obviously, I think obviously that a lot of people, the social cohesion that comes with that and everything else is clearly very important, as you've said. But I think in your particular case, if nothing was holding you back relating to that big corporate that you're working for, I would say there's no time like the present. And the easiest thing to do, and this isn't directed at you at all, is procrastination. So it's not directed at you. So if you believe that you've got a good business, and why hide it under a bushel? It's about getting out there and doing it. So yeah, I see absolutely no reason why not. And if anything, the risk is if someone was to delay taking action, other people are going to just steal a bit of a march. So why not just go for it, or just do it, as the Nike tick would do? So
I'll assume first mover advantage, not second mover right now then. Thank you.
Yes. Well, I mean, secondly, it still can be good because you can allow other people to create the market for you at their expense, and you can
Yes.
follow behind. And obviously, if you've got a big corporate who perhaps setting the market, and then you launch something that's a lot better, and you happen to be only a few weeks behind or a month behind, actually, you still can gain a lot of traction because they've actually established the market for you. So without paying anything. But the difficulty to delay it, then of course you can have, in the scenario I'm talking about, there's a bit like a cyclist. You might cycle.
Yes.
If you speak to our son Sam, you talk a lot about getting the 2 or 3 meters of someone who's cycling in front because they get caught in a backdraft, and obviously that's a really good example. So Renato, hopefully that's all right. If I could just let you return to the page like you normally do, if that's all right. And all right, it's lovely. Thank you very much. And I think we've got Daniel Kenning with us as well. So Daniel, welcome. So hopefully I didn't make you jump there. And by the way, those of you who are part of the live stream today, yes, Renatus, I think Alex has made a quite good point there. Alex, if you want to come onto the show with a particular question, by the way, do feel free to join us. The Muriel's posted a link there. So Daniel, in your particular case, obviously I've got to know you quite well because obviously one of our favorite clients, like all our clients are our favorite clients, but welcome for joining us today. Now I've got no idea what you're going to ask me, so let's go for it.
Oh, that's interesting because I thought you were going to ask me something.
I know I was wanting to know what question you might have for your business and what's possibly holding you back, and where would you like to be in 3 months?
Okay. Okay. Right. So,
no pressure. No pressure.
No pressure. Then no pressure. Well, for the benefit of the people who I haven't spoken to before, I suppose it might help to know that what I'm trying to do is the thing called transition engineering, which is basically helping companies to think differently about the challenges of sustainability so that they can make their businesses and their strategies relevant for the future. And I think what's holding the business back is that it's such an unfamiliar way of thinking about business. Very few businesses, if you ask them, very few businesses actually have a mechanism for seeing and thinking about the future operating environment. They all have future strategies, but a lot of the assumptions are based on what's happened in the past, not what's going to happen in the future.
Yes. So is a real question around that is how do you get your message out there, or what if you had a question, what would it be?
A question to a company.
I know, no, for yourself, for you want to grow Splendid Engineering.
Yeah.
What's either holding you back or what?
Well, that's one thing holding me back. Another thing holding me back is that the kind of companies that would normally pay a consultant to help answer that question are the kind of companies that wouldn't use a consultant like me as a one-man band. Right. They would go to McKinsey and they would pay McKinsey lots of money and probably get the wrong answer. But nobody would get sacked for doing that. So it's a low risk way of doing things. So I've got to work out a way of looking like McKinsey to big companies.
Okay, a question around that then. Have you got quite a few associates you work with? So if you get a massive opportunity that comes through to you, have you got people who could bring fairly easily to support you around you with either in scaling, to help support them in that way, or without additional expertise if, for example, it's a bit outside your field?
Yes, pretty easily. Yeah. I mean, because I've been delivering training in this for quite a long time, I know all the people who've got any idea about it.
Right. Okay. And your client, obviously, I do know a bit about your clients because you told me before, but just to benefit everyone else, what does the average value of a client spend with you over, say, 12 months? If it was a good prospect?
Well, that's a difficult question because I think you also know that at the moment, I'll be completely honest. At the moment, I haven't got a client doing this work that I'm doing this work for. I don't mind being honest about that. It's very difficult. So I'm actually doing other work to keep the business afloat.
Yeah. Okay. No, that sounds very sensible. I mean, just to give a bit of feedback for you, and obviously for those of you who don't know Daniel is one of these lovely people who've got to know very well over the last 18 months, a very keen supporter of what we do and equally the other way around. So thanks for being brave enough to be picked on, Daniel. But I think what I would say is one of the things, having got to know you very well, is the fact that you are personally very unique, and you do add a lot of value. Now, the type of thing, now this isn't, obviously, if you're trying to get into the corporate space, then ideally, if it comes across that's not just you, but there's other people that complement you, and you can present it that way so that you're a very safe pair of hands. So one of the concerns I think a lot of corporates tend to have with sort of a business which are one-person businesses is if you go off sick, for example, or went on holiday and they need help and support, would you be there to help them? And also, it's about being able to demonstrate your expertise. So you need to really come across and present yourself as an expert, that obviously in the way that you are in your particular field, but so people actually know about you. And obviously the way you can do that is by some of the things we discussed in Richard's case a bit earlier on. The other thing is that not everyone wants to deal with Mackenzie's.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, there is nothing bad about Mackenzie's, but for example, there's one particular person that I know very well who has specialised in cybersecurity, and he's an ex. He worked with GCHQ for about 17 years as well, so he's got a lot of massive amounts of experience. Although his business is relatively small, I think he's got about 5 or 6 people working with him. He's been able to steal a march under some of the big corporates, including Mackenzie's, I think was one of them. And the reason being is he had such a unique skill set with a very high level expertise. And then when they got one of these big corporates in, to be frank, they quoted far too much. And also what they then did is try to pass it down to a couple of account managers who in reality didn't do a very good job. So this guy, a single person with a team of 4 or 5 other people, managed to get the contract away from that big provider. And not only that, they were charging more as well, because they were seen. And the difficulty as well is if you underprice what you're doing too, then there is an issue there, because it goes back to, people almost judge your proposition also by price. If you underprice yourself, people they don't value you in the same way. So it's a bit of a long answer to quite a complex question, but has that helped a little bit in terms of some thoughts? Is there anything else you want to add?
I mean, the whole process that you're doing is helping. It all builds up. So yeah, it all helps. Thank you. Yeah.
No, thank you very much, Daniel. That's lovely. So Daniel, if I could ask you to join the page again, just to say, make sure you hopefully you've got that tab open. Just rejoin where you did before. And I'll mute you.
I wasn't. Facebook isn't working very well here, so I'm.
You can go via YouTube. So if you go to businessgrowthbureau.tv/YouTube-live, you'd better go in that way. So Muriel, can I let you just type that URL in for Daniel, if that's all right? We'll see you in just a few minutes,
okay.
Daniel.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else who would like to ask a question today and would like to be featured as part of this live stream, do feel that you can. Alex, I know you've normally got a lot to share or come up with some good questions, although because you're a very clever man, I know you do tax my brain quite a bit because it's very small, but nevertheless, just go for it. So anyone, do feel free in coming forwards. So Muriel, I think you got some other questions being asked beforehand as well today, haven't you?
Yes, I have actually. I've got quite a few. Right, a gentleman called Jonathan, who is a business growth coach, he said that I'm spending a lot of money on Facebook ads and I'm getting a very poor return on investment. How can I prove it?
Improve the response to the ads or get more business from...
Well, I think a bit of both. He didn't actually stipulate.
Yeah. I'm sorry, who was that by?
A gentleman called Jonathan.
Okay.
He's a business growth coach.
Okay, yes. That's a really good question, actually. It's particularly pertinent for all sorts of reasons. First of all, it's about making sure that if you're directing people to a page on your website, that your page is very, very highly optimized to receive those type of inquiries from Facebook. Okay. And quite often it's not just about having one landing page. You may have multiple landing pages based on what the call for action is and also the people you're actually targeting. And if you don't do that, what will happen is you probably will still get some results. But the difficulty is you probably, once you goes through to your website, you may only have got their attention initially for sort of 3 to 5 seconds, and they'll go away again. And that's providing they haven't already clicked away before your page is even loaded. So that's the first thing to actually bear in mind. So the other thing is that with Facebook ads, a lot of this also revolves around knowing your numbers, because, for example, it's all, obviously Facebook measures things different ways. So it may be by number of ad impressions, it may be a number of link clicks, it may be the number of impressions have been, amount of time someone stayed on a video for, and all these other things. And Facebook has probably got one of the most advanced algorithms in the world. That in many ways, from an advertiser point of view, they're way ahead of, LinkedIn is great for finding clients, especially business clients, but not through advertising on LinkedIn, if enough. But on Facebook, the search you could do is very powerful. The problem is you also may have an issue with the demographics, the type of people you're trying to target. Is that if there are more business customers, you're probably going to get better results through a direct approach on LinkedIn. If they're more in the business consumer space, Facebook can work very well. Now, there's something else which has also come about, which is very significant. You wouldn't think it'd be significant, but it's actually very significant. Retargeting on Facebook used to work really well. Okay, so I don't know if you've noticed this, but on Instagram and Facebook, if you go and visit a website, basically a lot of websites have a Facebook and a Google pixel on there. And what that basically means is if you go through to the website, then Facebook or Google will know that you've gone through to their website, and also that they were to track which pages you're going to. Now, it sounds very sinister, this, actually, and I personally don't have a problem with it particularly, but a lot of people do. And you might think, well, what's this got to do with everything? Facebook retargeting with ads can work very well, or it could work very well under normal circumstances. Because what happens if you go through to a website, you then find these very highly targeted ads appearing in front of you based on the website you've just visited. Now, the reason I don't personally have a problem with it is, first of all, Facebook doesn't share that data with you or I. Even if you're paying for it, they won't give you that data. What they will do is direct ads to those people. Okay, and I'd rather receive targeted adverts rather than adverts which are of no interest to me whatsoever. So I personally don't have a problem with it. Having said that, lots of people do. Okay, and in fact, I think I won't say something out of turn, but one of the people I know on the call today actually very much has privacy concerns generally. There's not, and that's probably very much on trend as well. Now, there's one very big change that's happened over the last 2-3 weeks. On the 26th of April, I remember the date for some strange reason, Apple announced that they were actually going to change their privacy settings on their phones and anyone using Safari, okay, which is obviously the main browser on an Apple Mac. And bear in mind that about 50% of users, certainly in the UK, US, and certain Western-style economies, probably account for about 40 or 50% of sales of devices. The rest is made up of Android and a mixture of others. Now, Facebook, by default, now has changed the privacy settings as part of the latest update on iOS 14. So by default, that tracking is not available anymore. So now people actually have to deliberately go into their settings. Now, I don't even know how to do it, to actually disable that privacy restriction. So they actually indicate they do want to receive targeted ads in so many words. Now, you could argue that's for the benefit. It sounds good. For people who are running a normal business, it's a bit of a pain, to be frank. So what that can basically, what it's meant, a lot of the old strategies you used to use on Facebook no longer work. Or let's put it this way, you can only really target the other 40 or 50% because Facebook won't know which pages are being visited. So what it means is people having to change their advertising strategies on Facebook to other means because they can't use that method anymore. And it's a very important part. In fact, Facebook is caused by Facebook some massive problems. Unfortunately, it probably means as people switch to other forms of advertising on Facebook, that rates will probably go up a lot on Facebook because a lot of the options are not available anymore in the traditional sense. So people are going to be switching their advertising spend to that. So again, another reason why you're just going to be very careful. So if you're just finding that's a bit of an issue for yourself, it's almost certainly not just you. It's probably lots of other people as well, especially if that's recently. So the way around that, if you're in the business to consumer space, Jonathan, which I think you are, business to business space, because you're a business growth coach, then look at LinkedIn a lot more as a case in point. Obviously, email works well, but there's a lot of noise in the email. So certainly LinkedIn, you get good results. And there are other strategies as well around that that you can put in place too. So hopefully I've dealt with that for Jonathan. I'm not sure Jonathan's on the call today. If you are, Jonathan, just say, give us a shout out so we're there. If not, no doubt you'll watch the recording tomorrow when it's available. Muriel, have you got some other questions as well? And by the way, if you've got some questions yourself, do drop them in the chat. I'd like to be able to have to help everyone here as part of today's session. It's supposed to be much more interactive today, so we want to make sure you get lots of value from the session. So Muriel, what's the next question?
Okay, now this is a John. He runs a consultancy business. It's based around LinkedIn. What he's saying is he's managing to make connections on LinkedIn, but when he sends them a message explaining about how he can help them with his consultancy business, they don't reply. Right.
Now, obviously, I might need to know more about that. Is John on the call today, Muriel? I'm not sure. The difficulty is we don't know, do we? Because unless someone says something in the chat.
No, I mean, not unless he introduced himself, but I can't see it.
Yeah, okay. So in which case, a question I would naturally ask is where that message was going out. So do we happen to know where he's sending that message out through the connection request?
Yes, after the connection request.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah, a lot of people make a very simple mistake, but a very bad mistake, okay? And funny enough, it usually stems from people if they've either got a very much a sales or business development background, or it could be the complete opposite, where people actually haven't got much experience in generally these type of things. What we do tend to find is that people will typically go out with a sales pitch on the message which has been sent out after the initial connection request. And if they don't do it on the second one, they will certainly do it by the third. Okay. Now, the difficulty is the analogy I'd give, it's a bit like, Muriel's heard this before, so sorry about this, Muriel. But so it's a bit like if you were to go out, on a hot date, you'd have to go through the courtship first, if that makes sense. Or most people would have to go through the courtship first. Okay. And it's the same thing here. If you overtly try and push information upon other people without, in effect, showing any interest or any form of engagement, in reality, you actually automatically push the other person away. They may not walk away at that point, or whatever the case is point, but in reality, their natural instinct would be to actually say, I feel uncomfortable with this, actually not showing any interest in me, so why would I bother? And also tends to have the other negative impact that it makes you a very unsafe person to refer as well. Okay, so now the other way of doing it is that what most people do is they will give up. So they'll send a connection request out. They might even then send a nice little message afterwards. In fact, I had an example of that on a call earlier on today. I was discussing with them. That's exactly what they were doing. In fact, they weren't even getting as far as the second message. They just assumed that because people didn't engage, that they weren't interested. And that wasn't the case at all. So we tend to find that through the message process needs to be like a 5 to 7 step message process. And it's all about sharing value, building engagement, encourage people to have a discussion, and getting people to put their hands up, if that makes sense. So hopefully that's answered it's Jonathan, I believe, isn't it, his questions. Okay. So I think Alex is in the green room, so we'll come to Alex in just a moment. So thank you for doing that. Good. Okay, so right. So I think we just seen that one. So any more questions, do drop them in. Now, Alex, I'm going to try and bring you in, so just bear me a second. So Alex, and we haven't spoken for about 3 or 4 weeks. Nice to have you on the live stream today. So You're muted at the moment. Let me
Mute.
Yeah, and we can.
Yeah,
There you
I
go.
had too many sessions running, lots of feedback.
Very good. So, Alex, I've got no idea what you're going to ask me, but I'll do my best to try and answer that as best I can.
I'm not going to ask you a question. I'm going to give you the opportunity to expand on something.
Okay.
Something we have talked about, and I think is very powerful, and actually will play to some of the questions you've already been posed, is the repurposing of content.
Yeah.
And the way that you can create something, and if it has a good point of view in, you can repurpose that, edit it down through many different broadcast mediums. The other point I'd make, and this is how you and I established a relationship, is if you are finding it difficult to get a response from someone, there is a very powerful tool you can use. Don't overuse it because it will become denatured and so on. But video emails can be a very personally powerful way of getting connection. And certainly every time I have used one, I've done it a few times now, I have got a response that has led to a pretty fruitful relationship in a business sense. So I thought I'd give you the opportunity to expand on the repurposing of materials, because I think that is a really powerful one.
I'm very grateful for that, actually. In fact, just to slightly share a slight story as well, I do know Alex pretty well, actually. He's a really good guy, and formerly a director at IBM with 5,000 people reporting to you when you were involved with them.
It goes up every time we talk. It was 2.5. I think put you straight. It goes up by 500 people every time we talk.
I think I might have seen that figure on your TV or something. I can't remember. But no, seriously though, I think it's really interesting because I think originally we met through a conversation on LinkedIn, didn't we? And
it was, I got to know you about Business Growth Bureau through something that popped up on LinkedIn. You and I got talking on the back of a video email I sent you.
Yeah, exactly. I was just going to talk about
a response from you.
Yeah. Now, Alex went to the complete extreme of this, which I was very flattered and very honoured about. And Alex decided he would really like to have a conversation with ourselves or myself. And that was really appreciative. But Alex went to a lot of trouble to record like a 4 or 5 minute recording, and which is all. If you know Alex, he's very professional with everything that it's done. But it stood out so much that I could not do anything other than to want to respond really positively. In fact, I was very grateful for that response. So interesting there. So initial outreach, LinkedIn, that started a little bit of a conversation on LinkedIn. Alex then very kindly sent me a personal video message. And then obviously you've had lots of conversations since. And actually, I think what's been really interesting with this, LinkedIn is not all about getting clients. Some of the best partnerships that we've formed have been through relationships that have been established over time. So for example, Alex, you're a really good example of that. We're regularly speaking now. Chris Cooper, who was very heavily involved with live streams, especially in the first 6 months of the pandemic, a lady called Karen Davies, Alex Smith is another case in point. So don't see it just being a source of business. It can be a really good way of building partnerships. Also, the other thing you mentioned about repurposing content is something which those who've taken part in other sessions will be well aware that we shared a Disney clip a while back. And if you look at all the famous productions, not all, but there's probably about 40 of them, you know, like Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs and all the other ones. If you then watch some other footage later on from another big production, you'll find that a lot of the movements of the people and the characters in there, you know, and so on, are actually repurposed. So it started off by one single session, which may be drawn by hand in the old days where they didn't have computers like we do now. And then, because obviously like something like 25 frames a second, to actually redraw every single frame it takes an extraordinary amount of time. Now, if Disney can go, even today, we'll do a lot of repurposing, then if you're actually creating content to start with, good content to start with, why not look at getting your message out there by actually repurposing it and repurposing it again, but in such a way you can use it across different mediums as well. So I'm very grateful for those prompts, actually, Alex. So thank you very much indeed.
And if I could just make a point on it, and we have touched on this in one of the previous live streams. You know, I'm into fly fishing, and one of the things there is if you're not getting a bite, change the fly, the thing on the hook, change where you're standing, right? Go to a different part of the river. And I think it's true for getting your messages over. If you're finding a particular medium is either not working for you, not cost effective, whatever it might be, by repurposing your information, you can put it through a different medium.
Yeah.
Right? You haven't put a lot of effort into creating something new. What you've done, you've just gone to fish in a different pond.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that can be quite beneficial as well.
Yeah. And I 100% concur with that as well, because it's, for example, a lot of people don't know, but if you take links as a case in point, and also distribution of business in the UK and in similar percentages in the US, there's 95% of businesses, and this is not an exaggeration, are actually employ less than 10 people in the UK. So it's 95%. Only 4% of businesses employ between 11 and 50. And I think it's 1% of businesses, if I've got my percent numbers right, employ between 50 and 250. And the corporates represent less than 0.05% of the market, but they just happen to account for 50% of the workforce. So now the reason I touch on that, of course, is a lot of people get their targeting wrong because they don't realize some other hidden features in LinkedIn to get your targeting right. And I think your analogy about fishing in the wrong part of the lake or the pond is a really good one. So the trouble is, because you then end up with the wrong type of leads who may love what you do, but they just don't have the money to spend on it, or there's just not the right target customer. So, Alex, I'm very grateful for that. So thank you very much indeed. So if it's all right with you, if I could let you very kindly return to the page, and thank you for that contribution. So much appreciated. Thank you. So what we'll do, Muriel, I think we've got another question as well, haven't we? We probably only got time for one or two more, I think.
Yeah, okay, right. So we've got Darren. He runs a financial planning business. So he's saying he's so used to running meetings via video conference, obviously through lockdown, he doesn't want to start traveling all over the country again for his meetings, which is what he did prior to lockdown. Do you think that people will expect more face-to-face meetings once lockdown's over?
Yeah, that's a really good one. I think there's different opinions on that. There is someone who I know, or we both know, who lives, I think, very close to the Isle of Skye in Scotland. And he always used to see his clients face to face. And his average client would spend over 50,000 with him. So it was very much the corporate space. And you're talking about a one-person business here. So you've got very successful business. When the pandemic came along, in a strange sort of way, it gave him the reason why he should move much more to an online model, where it was through video-based conferencing. And actually, because of his age, he's decided that on the whole, he's not going to go back to face-to-face anymore, other than when it's more where they're more group-based sessions, in which case he would still like to keep that personal element in. So I think the answer on that depends what type of business you're running. If you're running more of a lifestyle business, where you're predominantly selling time for money, then it's less important. If you can cut out the travel and the time, then yes, you may not be quite so enjoyable doing things over via Zoom, for example. On the other hand, you get a lot more working hours in the day, and you'll probably come back a lot less tired as well. If you're running a business which is looking to really grow and scale, I would actually argue there's really a place for both. So we're probably a good example of that. Until March last year, most of the activities we did were through face-to-face events or partnering up with large providers. And then we had to cancel a big event in mid-March, which was being pre-planned in January, because obviously we weren't allowed to run it anymore, understandably so. So obviously we moved more or less completely online as a result of that, but we will be going back to more of a hybrid model. Because at the end of the day, there's a place for both. And I think people do I think as things start to open up again, I think people will start to crave physical meetings again. We're human beings. We're designed to be social. But I don't think it revert back to how it was exactly before. It will take a very long time for all sorts of reasons. So I think the bottom line is think of hybrid. That's predominantly where it's going to go, I believe. But keep our options open on that. I think we've got time for one or two more questions. Does anyone on the chat now want to ask a question? Please do that. I think Muriel's trying to post the questions in as they come along.
Daniel from Splendid Engineering has put a question in there.
Okay, so what's he saying there, Muriel?
Question, read the data. 95% of businesses employ less than 10 people. Do you know what the data is for? What percentage of consultancy services are purchased by businesses with less than 10 staff?
Now, it's a difficult question. The bottom line is I don't know, because I don't know whether there's any statistics about that. What I would say, though, is the market generally is very oversupplied with people with general coaching, mentoring, business-related skills. So in that scenario, it's a case of making sure whatever you do, you really stand out and that somehow you're different. And I think, Daniel, in your case, your proposition is quite unique, and also people are buying into your unique expertise. So it really is about really being able to hone down on that. And as actually Alex just said just now, it's about making sure you fish in the right pond so you get the right type of clients. Not sure if I'm probably answering that, Daniel, but hopefully that's helped a little bit. Alex, I think you've raised a point in just a moment, but Muriel, I'll let you just read that in a second. We'll come back to that in just a second, if that's all right. If we deal with perhaps another question, and then I'll do a little bit of a quick summary, and then we'll come back again and deal with outstanding questions. Muriel, you seem to have muted yourself, sorry.
Sorry, I did press it, but obviously didn't press hard enough. Simon's a consultant. Now, I'm not sure what he consults in. He's put, my business is relevant to most industry sectors. How does he decide which industry to market to first?
Okay, I think a lot of the answer to that's going to be quite similar to the previous ones. What I would say, though, is avoid being a generalist at all costs. Okay, now you may have a service. For example, our service actually appeals to many different business types. What we have to do is we niche and micro niche and then micro niche again. And we may, of course, target multiple micro niches simultaneously because, of course, we can. We got the technology to be able to do it and the systems and the people to be able to do that. But if you really hone in with laser precision into those people who really want to, who may want what you have, they're going to see you as being much more relevant, and they'll see you as being much more of a specialist, and they will pay appropriately for your provision. Obviously, I don't know anything about your business per se, Simon, as it were. But the bottom line is you just niche, micro niche, and micro niche again. And LinkedIn actually is quite good. The search tools on there are very good, but you really need to drill down much deeper than you probably would think, actually. And that way you'll get some good results. But then look at micro niches, other micro niches. We got one more question before we have a.
Well, I've got a few actually. Which one shall I choose? I think you might have covered this one. Alice, she runs an event business. I have some traction in the marketplace. However, how do I scale and grow?
Okay.
Have you touched on that?
Yeah, we covered a lot of that. Obviously, as much as possible, it's about everything that centers around amplification. I have covered this already, so I won't go into much detail on this. And this is really what we class under amplify your brand, part of our proposition, and it's about being able to take some content, repurpose, redistribute, and use all the channels that are available out there. We can obviously cover that in more depth on a one-to-one level, as if you're part of us with us today. There's a second part to that question as well, Muriel. Sorry, just remind me of that. You're muted again. I
haven't got a second part to it.
Okay, I thought it was the second part rolled into that, which I don't think I've answered.
Oh, okay.
Not to worry. Right, one more question, then we'll do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, so we've got Sue. Now she runs a printing company. She wants recommendations, but she feels very awkward asking people for recommendations. What's the best way for her to do this?
Oh gosh, I think first of all, this sounds a bit cruel, and I apologise in advance. But actually, get over yourself, if I could put it that way. It's a horrible thing to say, and I apologise for that. But at a more practical level, and I must admit, I hate doing it as well. So you're not alone on that. At a more practical level, again, if you're using LinkedIn as a case one, LinkedIn's really good for this, because if, for example, you've got a really good relationship with a customer already and that you've served them really well, what you can do is you can just speak to the person and say, look, I'd really love to give you a recommendation myself. Would you be happy also to reciprocate? Okay. And the way that, what very good about the way LinkedIn does it is if you then give them a bit of recommendation, because remember, it's a two-way relationship. They may be a supplier and you may be the customer, but actually LinkedIn encourages reciprocity. So when you give that recommendation, you have a chance to approve it before it goes on your LinkedIn profile. But LinkedIn will then ask, would you like to give one back? So it works really, really well. And recommendations, endorsements don't mean anything on LinkedIn at all, but recommendations do carry a lot of weight. Now, if that's written the right way, the nice thing is, of course, there's nothing to stop you using that quote and putting it on your website, and making that available as part of your collateral. So that's a very simple way. So hopefully that's answered that one. I think what we'll do is we'll do a quick roundup. But Muriel, if you could have perhaps one or two questions lined up, and also I'd like to come back to Alex's point in just a moment as well. So if you could have those ready, Muriel, so I can move straight into that. So just spare me a second. Right. Now, just a quick outtake just for a moment, and we'll come back to everything. Next week, we're back to a fairly traditional format next week. I've got a special guest joining us called Roger Berlinson, and he's going to be talking about innovative social video. I'll start again. Innovative social video production to get results. And that's an interesting topic, actually. And it's talk about how to be relevant to your audience, how to make your content stand out, how to bypass news feeds limitations, and how to give a strong on-screen performance, and how to make content people want to actually watch. So I'd rather fluff that up, so I apologize for that, but you get the point. Now, Roger is quite an expert in this particular space. He spends a lot of his time actually out in the field doing filming as well. And he's going to be sharing lots of top tips on how to do this, and also how you can do this with probably things you've actually got already at home, whether it's your start from your phone. These days, your mobile devices, these things, they've got 4K cameras built in. So, it's these days, it doesn't have to be expensive to do stuff. So he's going to be sharing lots of insights around that. We've already talked a little bit about this part here, so I won't go into it. We have got our next mini conference on the 1st of June, which is from 3 till 5 o'clock. It will be covering similar topics we've discussed before, but we're going to change the format a little bit as well. So do book on that. And you can get to that very easily from our website. So these are all available via links or buttons on the homepage of our site. So you can book in the mini conference. We've also got an on-demand webinar. So if you can't join us on the mini conference, this basically just choose the webinar option instead. It's like a condensed version of what will be available on the mini conference, and also give you the option to book in a call or complete a diagnostic as part of that. There's also the weekly live streams, and we also get a link to the diagnostic there. Now, if you enjoy these Thursday sessions, what you can do is when you come to the date option, when you choose your date, we can either choose just continue, which means you select the one event, or you can choose the recurring option, and you can book multiple weeks. And those regulars on the live stream, I know do that because you can book like 8 weeks in advance, and that's absolutely fine. The diagnostic marketing health check is really useful. If you complete that, which takes about 4.5 to 6.5 minutes, you get a nice 8-page personalized report at the end of it. And then you're very welcome to book in a call, and we can, again, this is all free, and we can see how we can explore what help you actually need in your business. So that's everything about us. And we're going to come back to a couple of questions in just a moment. They're the contact details if you need to speak to myself or to Muriel And I'd say next week is back to normal, and we've got some other really special guests lined up over the next few weeks. So let's come back, Muriel, to what's sort of going on and what we might be missing.
Okay, well, going to Alex's comment, do you remember the question from Darren, that he's used to running video conferences from home? He doesn't want to be traveling to meetings. He's got used to working from home. So Alex has actually replied and put, there's a pent-up desire to meet face-to-face, but the pandemic has helped make remote meetings totally acceptable. Yeah. 18 months ago, it would be unusual to get someone you hadn't met before to meet online. Now it's the norm. So quite honestly, who was it, Darren? If you want to do meetings online, then do it anyway.
Yeah.
That, Alex.
Yeah. Yes, I think that's true. Yeah, I think what's one slight caveat I may give to that is that if you've got a very high ticket proposition, so something that's probably above £30,000, might be £250,000 or even several £1 million, typically there'll be multiple stakeholders involved. Now, it may be that the first time round, you would actually go and still see the prospect, or you may flip it on its head and then do a lot of pre-qualification or qualification by Zoom. But at some stage, on a high ticket sale, you probably would actually end up going back to meeting face-to-face, albeit that subsequent meetings may be online. Because at the end of the day, there's nothing like the human contact. And I think all of us are a little bit fed up with Zoom generally. But on the other hand, obviously, it does enable us to leverage our time as well. So we dismiss that at our peril. It's a great point on that one, Alex. Is there some other comments or points there, Muriel?
Yeah, the lady, I apologise if you're on today. The lady that said that she felt awkward about getting recommendations. Alex has commented, actually, if the customer or the client is a happy customer, then a lot of people feel really flattered if you ask them for a recommendation. I think that's quite true, isn't it?
Yeah, thank you, Alex, for that one. Yeah, good. That's really appreciated. Yeah, so I think we've got time for one or two more questions, then we'll call it a wrap.
I've actually got two, but we'll go for this one first. So Jessica, she runs a digital agency. She's saying that she's very good at creating brand and value proposition, but how does she get her message out there? I think actually you might have touched on this as well.
Yeah, I think we've covered that actually. So if you've missed part of this, just perhaps go back to the recording afterwards, and you're obviously very welcome to do that, or reach out to Muriel or myself afterwards. We'll gladly help you with that one. Yeah.
Okay, so right, Jack, who runs a technology business, has asked, what will the new world order look like?
Okay.
Good closing question.
God, yeah. I think again, we've perhaps largely covered that. What I would say though is I think we should be prepared. We're okay at the moment, I think, for the next few months, but I think we already know if these vaccines work very well against the new variants, then with any luck, we're well over the worst of this now, and everything will start to continue to open up, and it'll just get better from now on in. Being a bit realistic about it, if we look at what's been happening in India, which God forbid if something like that happened over here, obviously there are concerns about whether the vaccines are going to work against these new variants. So I think what I would say is very much go out with a positive mindset. And, there's no doubt the economy is already opening up, and it will continue to grow at an accelerated rate over the rest of this year. And then by the end of next year, the Bank of England are reporting they expect it to be back up to where it was before by the middle end of next year. Obviously, that's a lot of growth to come through. Now, the one good thing with the UK economy, and obviously those who are in the US or possibly some other more Western style economies, which have been lucky enough to have the vaccines, is that by nature, we're very entrepreneurial as a nation. And the small micro businesses and the smaller to medium-sized businesses are the ones that tend to accelerate the speed of bounce back, if I can put it that way. So yes, corporates may have got lots of money to spend, but a lot of them they're basically trying to turn massive tankers, whereas the small, medium-sized business can be very nimble. So I would actually expect the recovery to come mainly from the small to medium-sized business sector, maybe from that point onwards. However, be prepared, if they do have to start locking down again, that, there may need to revert back to some of the original methods we were using to start with. But at least this time around, we're all much better equipped to be able to deal with things. So I think that actually finished very nicely. Is there any other closing points we might have missed, Muriel?
I don't think so. No, I don't think so.
All right. Well, I was just bang on 6 o'clock, or just about 30 seconds past 6 o'clock. So I think what I'd like to do is just thank everyone for joining us today. Hopefully you've enjoyed today's session. And I'd be interested to know if you've enjoyed today's session, just tell us as well, either in the chat now or after we finish, because we will still see the comments come through, or just drop us an email and let us know, because at the end of the day, if people like this format, we won't do this every week. It might be we do this every 3 or 4 weeks, but we might start to do this again if people are really enjoying it. Okay, well, thank you ever so much. We'll look forward to seeing you on next Thursday's live stream. Do feel free to ask questions and do engage. We love having these conversations. And those of you who've contributed today, Daniel and Renata and Alex, of course, thank you very much for taking part too. And those of you who engaged through the chat as well. So have a great week. We look forward to seeing you next Thursday at the usual time at 5 o'clock British Summer Time. Take care, everyone.
Enjoy your evening. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.